Hi everyone, William here from Pangolin Photo Safaris. Last week I showed you how to select the best image from a sequence. From using the reject tool to color and star rating, we went from 500 images to just one. This week I want to show you how to edit that image in 4 unique ways. If you haven't watched last week's video, be sure to check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. In this video, I want to show you my top tips and tricks to edit the same image for competitions, social media, to hang on your wall, and finally for your portfolio. I want to share my advice for using Lightroom to edit, as well as denoise software to clean up the image. My name is William Steele and I'm a professional wildlife photographer for Pangolin Photo Safaris here in Botswana. My job is to help guide and teach guests to help them get the best shots. I personally love using Lightroom when editing my images. I find that I can do everything I need without an excess of tools that I don't. For this editing tutorial, I'll be combining this with Topaz Denoise. First, let's look at how we would edit this image for competitions. Most competitions have strict rules regarding what is and isn't allowed with editing. It is always good to check each competition's rules before entering, as they often differ. Because most will request raw files, erring on the side of caution is often advised with a competition edit. The first thing I do when editing all photographs is to crop and align. What I am hoping to achieve here is a more uniform composition and a level image. It is already a tight crop, so I just want to make sure that the spacing on either side of the line is roughly the same. I'm using the eyes as a reference to find the alignment level. Once we have done that, I want to move down to the Basics panel. Most of the general editing we will do will be done here. Before you start to play around with the sliders, it is good to take a moment just to look at the image, deciding what you want to achieve before you begin. As I start adjusting, I work my way down these sliders, testing what looks best. I like the exposure of the original image, so I just slightly lower it to bring more attention to the highlights. I personally don't use the contrast slider. Instead, I use the highlights, shadows, whites and blacks to fine-tune these contrasts, working through them until I find a balance I like. The photograph was taken in perfect early morning light, so by adjusting these 4 sliders, I'm simply trying to emphasize the beautiful soft lighting. Once I've made the general changes in the Basics section, I like to use the masking tool to do more area-specific edits. First, brightening up the eyes a little. Like with the general edit, I'm adjusting highlights, shadows, whites and blacks. But make sure you don't overdo it, as it can look unnatural. Next, I want to make the lines pop just a little bit more. I go into masking again and click Select Background. I love Lightroom's sky, subject and background masking select options, as they save you so much time. Because I want to blur the background a little, I'm going to subtract some of the highlighted area in the same depth of field as the line, so it blends in better. I then adjust clarity and texture. Yet again, don't overdo this. With most edits, we're trying to amplify what is there, not create something that wasn't. I also just want to make sure all the viewer's attention is to the eyes and the face of the subject. So I go in with a brush again and simply increase clarity slightly. And that's it in Lightroom. Now I just want to export this image to Topaz Denoise for a final touch-up. Once you have added Topaz Denoise as a plugin, you can simply right-click on the image, go to Edit In, and select Topaz Denoise AI. Because this image has very little, if any, noise, I just want to add a small amount of denoise, sharpen slightly, and recover original detail. Each image requires you to test these sliders to see what looks best. And that's it. Our first image is edited. Let's move on to Edit 2, Social Media. Because we have already edited this image for competitions, we can select the previous edit and simply create a virtual copy, or, in this case, synchronize the settings from the previous edit. We do this by selecting the first edit, then the current image, and click Sync at the bottom of the editing panel. We can also include all the masking and cropping edits we made as well. Once we have done this, I want to crop the image differently for social media. Because most people will be viewing this image on their phone, we really need the image to stand out. Making sure the subject fills the frame, we want to search for a composition that works. Because apps like Instagram work best in portrait, I ended up changing to a 4:3 crop ratio. Because we copied over the previous edits, we simply have to tweak them to fit this new crop. One thing I did want to do is draw even more attention to the lion on the right. I did this by brightening the eyes slightly and softening the highlights on the face to draw the viewer's attention to the eyes. And it's as simple as that. Now we just have to put it through Topaz Denoise for those final touches. Because we do not need to be so subtle for social media, I increased the noise reduction and sharpened a little bit more to make it pop. Just make sure that it doesn't look artificially sharpened in the face. Edit 2 is done. Edit number 3 is to print for the house. This is the one that we can really push the editing a little bit more. We want the photograph to be a piece of art on the wall, so we can really fine-tune our look. Because color images are hard to match to your home, I want to convert this image to black and white. I think black and white gives a much more fine art feel. Once converting, we simply go down the sliders in the basic panel like before. One rule of thumb is that black and white images often need more generous changes to the highlights, shadows, whites, and black sliders. We really want to emphasize contrast as we have removed the element of color. Black and white images work best with subjects that have high contrast as it exaggerates the shapes and textures. Like in Edit 1, we then use the masking tools to make localized edits. This time, I'm using these masking selects to push attention away from the background and towards the lion. By reducing highlights and darkening shadows, we are able to focus the audience's eye to the thing that matters, the lion. I personally use editing as a way to exaggerate the visual impact of the image. While this image is more intensely edited than the other two, that is because of what we want to use the image for. As I mentioned in the beginning, it is important to go into your editing process with an idea of the outcome. While this edit is likely too much for competitions, I think it needed that extra wow factor as a print. In the first edit, I showed you how to add light to the subject's eyes manually. You can also do this by using a mask and then clicking Custom at the top of the panel, scrolling down and selecting Iris Enhance. You can then increase or decrease this with a slider. The image is looking good, but I just want to make a few final tweaks. I reduce the highlights on the lion's face so it isn't overpowering. I reduce the clarity and texture of the background to make the lion stand out. I darken the foreground with a graduated filter. Add a vignette, making sure that it is subtle and not obvious. And lastly, use the brush tool to reduce a few highlights and lift a few shadows. And that's it. Let's put it through Denoise. Much like the first edit, we just want to subtly add a layer of sharpening and reduce noise. And there we have it, edit number 3. Would you hang this print on your wall? Let me know in the comments below. Last but not least, edit number 4 for your portfolio. Because our portfolio image will likely be very similar to our competition image, I will again synchronize our edits from the first image. The only difference with the portfolio is that we do not have to be as strict about our editing rules. This image is all about that wow factor, so my focus is on getting rid of all the distractions and blemishes we discovered through the last 3 edits. Using the healing tool, I go in and get rid of any issues from small marks to distracting colors that I see in the scene. I also exaggerate some of the previous masks, like adding more sharpness and light into the eyes, as well as bringing more light into the dark, distracting areas of the frame. Like with each step, let's bring it into denoise for the final cleanup. And that's it. Now all that's left is to reveal our 4 final images. And here they are. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helps you edit your images easily and effectively for every occasion. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to join the Pangolin community so you don't miss out on future content. See you next time.